Football, often called the beautiful game, is celebrated worldwide for its passion, drama, and sense of community. But beneath the surface of this globally adored sport lies a darker, more violent world that has long haunted the terraces and streets surrounding football stadiums. Hooliganism. In England, the birthplace of modern football, hooliganism has carved out a notorious reputation, becoming as much a part of the game's fabric as the teams and players themselves. Throughout the 1970s, 80s and 90s, English football was plagued by a subculture of violence that manifested in the fierce clashes between rival groups of supporters, known as firms. These firms were not just casual fans, but organised gangs with a penchant for violence, each tied to a specific club and driven by a mixture of loyalty, rivalry, and the thrill of confrontation. For some, being part of a firm was about pride, identity, and camaraderie. For others, it was simply about fighting and asserting dominance in a world where respect was earned with fists and boots. At the heart of this underworld was Arsenal Football Club, one of England's most storied and successful clubs. Arsenal, with its rich history dating back to 1886, had long been a symbol of North London pride, boasting a passionate fan base that spanned generations. The club's iconic red and white kits, the roar of the crowd of Highbury, and later the state-of-the-art Emirates Stadium all played a part in cultivating a fiercely loyal following. However, alongside the legitimate supporters was a shadowy element that brought an edge to Arsenal's fan culture, a collection of hooligan firms that would go on to leave their mark on English football. In the late 20th century, Arsenal's reputation extended beyond their on-field successes to the notoriety of their hooligan element. Two primary firms, the Gooners and The Herd, emerged as key players in the hooligan scene, each contributing to the club's reputation in distinct ways. While Arsenal's players battled for its glory on the pitch, these firms waged their own wars in the stands, pubs and streets, turning match day into battlegrounds that often overshadowed the football itself. The rise of hooliganism within Arsenal's ranks mirrored the broader trend sweeping English football. During the 1980s, hooligan violence became a blight on the sport, capturing the attention of the media, politicians, and police enforcement. Stadiums that were once considered sacred spaces for fans became arenas of conflict, where firms would meet up to settle scores. The Gooners and The Herd were no exception, embodying a culture that thrived on defiance, aggression, and a deeply ingrained sense of territorialism. This documentary delves into the world of Arsenal's hooligan firms, exploring their origins, their rise to infamy, and their impact on football culture. From the streets of Holloway to the terraces of Highbury, these firms left a legacy that is both reviled and revered, a testament to a time when football was not just about the game, but also about the fight. Through the stories of these firms, we glimpse at a raw, unfiltered side of football, one that is often hidden beneath the polished surface of the modern sport, but remains an undeniable part of its history. Arsenal's hooligan scene was not just about violence. It was about belonging, identity, and the unbreakable bonds forged in the heart of battle. It was about a subculture that existed on the fringes of society, where football was more than just a sport, it was a way of life. And while the days of hooliganism may be fading, the stories of those who lived it continue to resonate, providing a sobering reminder of the game's turbulent past, and the passion that can drive men to extremes of loyalty and rivalry. In the chapters that follow, we will explore the origins and evolution of Arsenal's hooligan firms, meeting the men who led them, the rivalries that defined them, and the moments that cemented their place in football folklore. This is the story of the Gooners, the Herd, and the chaotic, uncompromising world of football hooliganism. A world where the line between fan and fighter was often blurred, and where loyalty to the club could be both a badge of honour and a battle cry. In the late 20th century, when football's popularity surged in England, a parallel and far less glamorous scene was unfolding within the terraces. The rise of football hooligan firms. These groups, defined by their violent loyalty to the clubs, emerged as football's darker underbelly, adding a dangerous edge to the sport. Arsenal's football club, rooted deeply in the heart of North London, became home to two of the most notorious firms, the Gooners and The Herd. This chapter explores the early days of Arsenal's hooliganism, the formation of these groups, and the social, economic and cultural influences that shaped their rise. The origins of hooliganism at Arsenal can be traced back to the late 1970s, a time when English football was at crossroads. The sport was struggling with crumbling stadiums, poor management and declining attendance, partly due to the violence that increasingly characterised match days. Arsenal, like many other clubs, found itself in the thick of this growing crisis. For some fans, football was more than a weekend pastime. It was an escape from the hardships of everyday life, especially in the working class neighbourhoods of North London. But for others, it became an arena for expressing anger, frustration, and a thirst of belonging, often through violence. By the 70s, pockets of Arsenal supporters began organising themselves into loosely knit groups dedicated to confronting rival fans. These groups didn't just want to fight for the thrill of it, they fought for territory, pride, and the unwritten rules of the Terrace Wars. Highbury, Arsenal's historic home, became a fortress, not just for the team, but for the fans who defended their turf with an almost tribal zeal. It was from this culture of defiance and camaraderie that Arsenal's hooligan films were born. The Gooners and The Herd emerged from this turbulent scene, each carving out a distinct identity within Arsenal's fanbase. The Gooners, taking their nickname from the club's nickname the Gunners, were amongst the earliest firms to form. Active primarily during the 1980s, the Gooners were a formidable presence, known for their unpredictable violence and fierce loyalty to the club. They were not just a hooligan group, but a reflection of a fan culture that wore its aggression on its sleeve. The Gooners operated with a loose hierarchy, attracting a mix of working class youth, hardened veterans, and those seeking a sense of belonging within the chaos of the streets. In contrast, the Herd, which came into prominence slightly later, was a more organised and coercive unit. Known for their distinctive war cry, EIE, the Herd quickly established a reputation as one of the most feared firms in London, led by prominent figures like Dainton, the Bear, Connell. The Herd operated a disciplined approach to violence, often coordinating their movements with military-like precision. Unlike the Gooners, who thrived on spontaneous clashes, the Herd's actions were often premeditated, with strategic incursions into rival territories and meticulously planned confrontations. The distinction between the Gooners and the Herd was clear. While both groups shared a love for Arsenal and a penchant for violence, the Gooners were more spontaneous and less structured, whereas the Herd prided themselves on organisation, discipline, and the fierce loyalty of their members. The rise of hooliganism within Arsenal's fanbase cannot be fully understood without considering the socio-economic landscape at the time. The late 70s and 80s were marked by economic hardship, high unemployment, and a sense of disillusionment amongst the working class in England. North London, with its industrial roots and multicultural communities, was not immune to these challenges. For many young men, the sense of despair and lack of opportunity fueled a need to assert their identity, often finding an outlet in football and the violence that surrounded it. Football stadiums, once places of community and celebration, had become battlefields where firms clashed, not just with rival fans, but with a society that many felt had abandoned them. The sense of belongings that firms like the Gooners and the Herd provided was intoxicating, a brotherhood forged in the shared experiences of fighting for a club against the police and anyone who threatened their territory. Rivalries also played a crucial role in the rise of these firms. Arsenal's geographical and historical rivalries with Tottenham Hotspur, West Ham, Chelsea and Millwall were not just confined to the pitch. The animosity spilled into the streets, where firms clashed in brutal encounters that defined the hooligan era. These rivalries were deeply personal, often rooted in years of animosity, territorial pride, and the desire to prove dominance. For the Gooners and the Herd, every match day was a chance to defend their club's honour, not just against opposing teams, but against their firms. Encounters with Tottenham's Yid Army, West Ham's ICF intercity firm, Chelsea's Headhunters, and Millwall's Bushwhackers were infamous. each one adding to the lore and legacy of Arsenal's hooligans. The formation of the Gooners and the Herd was not just about football, it was about identity, survival, and the primal needs for respect. In the following chapters, we will delve deeper into the inner workings of these firms, exploring the key figures, legendary clashes, and the impact they had on Arsenal and the English Football League. From the early days of disorganised skirmishes to the height of their notoriety, the Gooners and the Herd were more than just hooligans. They were a product of their environment, shaped by the social, economic and cultural forces of their time. As Arsenal Football Club navigated the tumultuous waters of English football in the late 20th century, a distinct force emerged within its fanbase, the Herd. Formed in the late 1970s, the Herd quickly rose to prominence as one of the most organised and formidable hooligan firms in London. Their roots intertwine with the industrial neighbourhoods of North London, where a sense of community and defiance against authority shaped their identity. Led by charismatic figures and fueled by a desire to assert their dominance, the Herd adopted a structured approach to hooliganism that set them apart from their counterparts. Unlike the unorganised tendencies of some firms, the Herd operated with military-like precision, organising incursions into rival territories and coordinating strategic confrontations that often spilled from the terraces into the streets. At the heart of the Herd's legacy stood Dainton Connell, known affectionately as the Bear of Highbury. Born in Brighton to Jamaican parents in 1961, Connell's journey from a scaffolder to a revered figure in Arsenal's hooligan scene mirrored the broader transformation of football culture in England. His larger-than-life persona and unwavering loyalty to Arsenal made him a central figure within the Herd and a symbol of their ethos. Mr. Connell's influence extended beyond his physical presence on the terraces. He was not only a leader in confrontations against rival firms, but also a cultural icon whose actions resonated with a generation of Arsenal supporters. His charisma, combined with a fierce determination to protect Arsenal's honour, earned him respect and fear in equal measure. The Herd's reputation for organised violence was built on a series of legendary confrontations with rival firms throughout the 1980s and early 1990s. These clashes were not just about football, they were about pride, territory and the unwritten rules of hooliganism. Among their most notable battles were encounters with Tottenham Hotspur's Yid Army, West Ham's ICF Intercity Firm, Chelsea's Headhunters and Millwall's Bushwhackers. Each confrontation added to the Herd's mystique and solidified their reputation as one of the most feared firms in English football. Their strategic approach, combined with Mr. Connell's leadership, often gave them the edge over their opponents, turning ordinary match days into chaotic battlegrounds, where the outcome could shape reputations and rivalries for years to come. Dainton Connell, born on February 14th, 1961 in Brighton, England, was a figure whose life and legacy defy easy categorization. His early years were shaped by a blend of social economic challenges and a burgeoning rebellious spirit. Mr. Connell's Jamaican heritage and working class background contributed to a sense of defiance and resilience that would become hallmarks of his character. Mr. Connell's family moved to North London when he was a teenager, a transition that exposed him to the gritty reality of urban life in a city known for its vibrant but sometimes volatile football culture. Settling in Wood Green, Mr. Connell's early adult life saw him working as a scaffolder, a physically demanding job that mirrored the rough and tumble nature of the terraces he would come to dominate. It was in this environment that Mr. Connell first encountered the world of football hooliganism, a subculture that would become to define much of his early adulthood. By the late 1970s, Mr. Connell had firmly established himself within Arsenal FC's hooligan subculture. The Herd, a notorious football firm, was formed during this period and quickly gained a reputation for its aggressive tactics and fierce loyalty to Arsenal. Mr. Connell's natural leadership and imposing presence made him an ideal candidate to rise through the ranks of the Herd. His rise was not just about his physicality, It was also a testament to his ability to navigate the complex dynamics of football violence and loyalty. Connell's role in the Herd was multifaceted. As a leader, he was instrumental in organising and executing some of the firm's most notorious confrontations. His strategic mind and understanding of the hooligan landscape allowed him to manage the firm's activities with a level of sophistication that set him apart from his contemporaries. The Herd's influence was felt most acutely in the 1980s, a decade marked by intense and often violent confrontations between football firms across the country. Mr. Connell's leadership was pivotal during this period, particularly in major clashes with rival firms. One notable confrontation occurred in 1983 in Upton Park, where the Herd clashed with West Ham's Notorious firm, resulting in widespread violence that highlighted the sheer ferocity of Mr. Connell's leadership. Connell's impact was not limited to the physical confrontations. He also played a crucial role in maintaining the Herd's internal cohesion. His ability to command respect and loyalty from his followers was key to the firm's operational effectiveness. This respect was earned through both his leadership on the Terraces and his ability to enforce discipline within the firm. Beyond the violence and rivalry, Mr. Connell's role in the Herd also involved efforts to combat the rise of far-right extremism within football culture. In the 1980s, the BNP and other far-right groups sought to exploit the football terraces as a platform for their racist ideologies. Mr. Connell's response was direct and decisive. He actively worked to prevent these groups from gaining a foothold at Arsenal, using both confrontational tactics and strategic interventions. His actions included physically confronting BNP members, disrupting their activities, and ensuring that Arsenal's fanbase remain resistant to such ideologies. The most fascinating aspect of Mr. Connell's life is perhaps his transition from a notorious hooligan to a respected figure in the entertainment industry. His association with the Pet Shop Boys began in 1989 when he was recruited as their bodyguard. This new role marked a dramatic shift from the violence of the Terraces to the world of pop music. Mr. Connell's role with the Pet Shop Boys was characterised by his professionalism and adaptability. He became an integral part of the band's touring team, managing security, handling logistics, and even making an appearance in music videos. His involvement with the band was not just a job, but a testament to his ability to bridge two vastly different worlds. Mr. Connell's work with the Pet Shop Boys extended beyond security. He was also involved in the band's creative projects, providing additional vocals on tracks and appearing in promotional materials. The contrast between Mr. Connell's life on the Terraces and his work with the Pet Shop Boys highlights his complex personality. On one hand, he was a feared leader in the hooligan world, and on the other, he was trusted and a respected figure in the world of music. This duality made Mr. Connell a unique figure whose life story encapsulates both the violence of football hooliganism and the glamour of the entertainment industry. Mr. Connell's ability to navigate these contrasting spheres speaks of his versatility and the complexity of his character. His time with the Pet Shop Boys also provided him with the opportunity to move beyond his past and establish a different kind of legacy. In the next chapter, we will delve into the significant events and confrontations that defined Mr. Connell's tenure within the Herd, examining how his leadership influenced the firm's legacy and broader football culture. The saga of Arsenal's hooligan firms, notably the Herd and the Gooners, is etched into football history through some of the most notorious and brutal confrontations within the sport. These episodes of violence reflect not only the severe problems of football hooliganism, but also the complex dynamics of fan rivalries and the challenges faced by law enforcement. One of the most notable incidents involving Arsenal's hooligans took place on March the 27th, 1988, during a highly anticipated match between Millwall. The clash is often cited as one of the most violent episodes of football hooliganism in English history. The animosity between Arsenal's The Herd and Millwall's F Troop was deep-rooted, stemming from decades of rivalry. The matchday atmosphere was electric, with both sets of supporters primed for conflict. The tension was palpable and the game was commended. The stands were quickly engulfed in a surge of violence. As the game commenced, the stands were quickly engulfed in a surge of violence. The confrontation started in the stands, and it soon spread to the pitch. As Arsenal and Millwall fans clashed, the violence became increasingly severe. Arsenal's hooligans, known for their aggressive tactics and large numbers, clashed with Millwall supporters, who were equally notorious for their militancy. The use of weapons, including batons and broken bottles, exuberated the situation. The authorities struggled to maintain control of the situation as the situation escalated. The police presence, though substantial, was overwhelmed by the scale of the violence. The match had to be halted to restore order. The aftermath was marked by significant damage to the stadium and numerous injuries amongst fans and the police officers alike. The authorities made several arrests, but the episode underscored the difficulties in managing such large-scale violence. Another significant and brutal episode involving Arsenal's hooligans occurred on April the 18th, 2000, during a UEFA Cup semi-final between Arsenal and Galatasaray in Copenhagen. This clash is often remembered for its severity and the scale of violence that unfolded. Prior to the match, tensions were already high. Arsenal and Galatasaray had a history of animosity, and the stakes of the semi-final only heightened the potential for conflict. The pre-match atmosphere in City Hall Square was charged with aggression. As Arsenal and Galatasaray fans gathered, a violent confrontation erupted. The violence was shocking in its intensity. Arsenal fans and Galatasaray ultras clashed with brutal force. The confrontation involved the use of weapons, including knives and blunt objects. Reports from the scene described a scene of chaos, with several people being stabbed and others sustaining serious injuries. The police response was swift, but struggled to contain the violence. The sheer number of aggressive fans and the level of violence made it challenging for the law enforcement to manage the situation effectively. The incident drew widespread media attention and highlighted the ongoing issue of football hooliganism. The violence at City Hall Square was a stark reminder of the persistent challenges faced by authorities in controlling football-related violence. The tactics employed by football hooligan firms during these clashes were reflective of the broader strategies and culture of violence that pervaded English football at the time. Both the Herd and rival groups such as Millwall's F Troop and Galatasaray's Ultras used their numbers and physical aggression as primary tools in their confrontations. In the Arsenal-Millwall clash, the Herd's approach was characterised by their use of brute force and sheer numbers. They sought to overwhelm their rivals through aggressive physical confrontations and intimidation. Their use of weapons was a common tactic, with many hooligans carrying blunt objects and other tools to escalate the violence. In Copenhagen, Galatasaray's fans employed similar tactics. The use of knives and other weapons was a key feature of violence. The pre-match gathering provided a prime opportunity for both sets of fans to engage in physical confrontations before the match even started. The police responses to these incidents were often reactive rather than proactive. During the Arsenal-Millwall clash, the authorities faced significant challenges in managing the scale of the violence. The police presence was substantial, but struggled to contain the aggression of both sets of fans. The violence was so pervasive that it resulted in a halt to the match, highlighting the difficulties in controlling such large-scale disturbances. In Copenhagen, the police response was similarly challenged. The intensity and organisation of the violence made it difficult for law enforcement to maintain order. The large number of aggressive fans and the use of weapons complicated the efforts of the authorities to restore control. Understanding the psychology behind hooliganism involves examining several key factors. For many involved, hooliganism provided a sense of identity and belonging that was deeply valued. Being part of the firm offered camaraderie and a shared purpose, which were particularly important for those who felt disenfranchised or marginalised. Aggression and the pursuit of status were also significant motivators. Engaging in violent confrontations was a way to gain respect and assert dominance within the firm and the broader football community. The act of participating in violence was often seen as a demonstration of loyalty and strength. Socio-economic factors played a crucial role as well. Many hooligans came from working class backgrounds and faced economic challenges. Football hooliganism offered an outlet for their frustrations and a way to exert control over their circumstances. The sense of community and belonging provided by the firm was a significant factor in sustaining involvement in hooligan activities. The rituals and culture surrounding hooliganism often reinforced these behaviours. Pre-match gatherings, organised fights, and the traditions associated with hooligan firms created a sense of continuity and justification for the violence. These rituals helped to perpetuate a cycle of violence and maintain the aggressive culture within firms. In conclusion, the major incidences involving Arsenal's hooligan firms, such as the clashes with Millwall and Galatasaray, provide a detailed picture of the intensity and complexity of football hooliganism. The tactics used, the police responses, and the psychological motivations behind the violence all contribute to a deeper understanding of this phenomenon. The legacy of those clashes continues to influence football culture and the approach to managing hooliganism today. Football hooliganism, particularly in the context of Arsenal's notorious firms like the Herd and the Gooners, is more than just violence. It is a complex subculture with its own set of unwritten rules, values and dynamics. This chapter delves into the culture and code of the Terraces, exploring the principles that govern hooligan behaviour, the sense of camaraderie and loyalty, and the darker elements such as racism and nationalism that influence these groups. The world of football hooliganism operates under a set of unwritten rules and codes that govern behaviour both on and off the Terraces. These rules, while not formalised, are deeply ingrained in the culture of hooligan firms and are crucial for maintaining order and discipline within the group. Within hooligan firms, respect for hierarchy and seniority is paramount. Older or more experienced members of the firm command a great deal of respect and often lead the group in confrontations. Newer or younger members must earn their place through loyalty and demonstrated commitment to the firm's cause. This hierarchy helps maintain order and reinforces the group's cohesion. Loyalty is the cornerstone of football hooligan culture. The sense of brotherhood amongst its members is forged through shared experiences, including violence and confrontations with rival firms. This loyalty extends to the protection of fellow members and the firm's reputation. This loyalty or perceived betrayal is often met with severe consequences, reinforcing the importance of solidarity within the group. Hooligan firms have their own rituals and traditions that help solidify the group identity and create a sense of belonging. These can include pre-match gatherings, organised fights, and specific chants or slogans that represent the firm's identity. These rituals are not only a means of maintaining group cohesion, but also a way of asserting dominance and intimidating rivals. The code of silence or omerta is a critical aspect of hooligan culture. Members are expected to avoid cooperating with police enforcement and to keep the firm's activities and strategies confidential. This secrecy helps protect the firm's operation and maintain its power and influence. The camaraderie and loyalty experienced within hooligan firms are central to understanding their appeal and persistence. For many members, being part of a hooligan firm offers a profound sense of belonging and purpose. Bonds formed amongst the members of a hooligan firm are often compared to those in a close-knit community. Shared experiences of violence, rivalry, and support create a sense of brotherhood. This camaraderie is reinforced by the experiences and challenges faced together, creating lifelong friendships and loyalty. The excitement and adrenaline associated with violent confrontations are significant factors in the allure of hooliganism. The thrill of a fight provides an outlet for aggression and a way to experience a heightened sense of reality. For many, the violence is not just a means of exerting dominance, but also a form of escapism from everyday life. Loyalty to both the firm and the football club is a driving force for many hooligans. Support for the club extends beyond the mere attendance of matches. It involves a commitment to defending the club's honour against rivals. This loyalty is often engaging in violent acts as a way of demonstrating dedication and allegiance. While hooligan culture encompasses elements of camaraderie and loyalty, it is also marred by racism, nationalism, and extremist ideologies. The presence of far-right influences within some hooligan firms highlights the darker side of this subculture. Many hooligan firms, including some associated with Arsenal, have been influenced by far-right ideologies. These groups often use football as a platform to promote racist and nationalist agendas. This influence is evidenced in symbols, chants, and behaviours by some of the hooligan fractions. The Herd, under the leadership of figures like Dainton Connell, has actively combated the spread of far-right ideologies within Arsenal's base. Mr. Connell was known for his opposition to racism, took a firm stance against the attempts by the far-right groups to infiltrate Arsenal. He was involved in various actions to prevent the British National Party and other far-right organisations from gaining a foothold amongst Arsenal supporters. The struggle against far-right influences often led to internal conflicts within hooligan firms. While some members embraced extremist ideologies, others, like Mr. Connell, fought against them. This internal conflict highlighted the broader issues within hooligan culture and the challenges of addressing extremist elements. The efforts to combat far-right ideologies had a long-lasting impact on the Arsenal fanbase. Mr. Connell's actions and the broader resistance to racism within hooliganism contributed to a more inclusive atmosphere amongst many Arsenal supporters. However, the legacy of these efforts is complex, reflecting both the ongoing challenges and the progress made in addressing extremist influences. In conclusion, the culture and code of the Terraces provide a comprehensive understanding of the world of football hooliganism. The unwritten rules, camaraderie, and the thrill of the fight are central to this subculture, while racism and nationalism reveal the darker aspects that have been contested by individuals like Dainton Connell. The dynamics of hooliganism, with its blend of loyalty, violence, and ideological conflict, offer a deep insight into the challenges of managing and understanding this phenomenon in football culture. The phenomenon of football hooliganism, with its intense violence and chaotic nature, has long captured the public's imagination. The way hooligans have been portrayed by the media and responses from law enforcement and government have significantly influenced the trajectory of this subculture. This chapter explores the portrayal of hooligans, the crackdown measures implemented by the authorities, and the evolving landscape of football culture and law enforcement. The media plays a crucial role in shaping the public's perceptions of football hooliganism. From sensationalist headlines to nuanced documentaries, the portrayal of hooligans varies widely, often reflecting broader societal anxieties and conflicts. Throughout the late 20th century, media coverage of football hooliganism was often marked by sensationalism. Hooligans were frequently depicted as violent thugs, responsible for disrupting not just football matches, but public order. This portrayal created a narrative of hooligans as scapegoats for broader societal issues, including youth disillusionment and economic hardship. Newspapers and television reports often focused on dramatic incidences and violent clashes, reinforcing negative stereotypes and fueling public fear. Conversely, some media portrayals romanticize hooligans, depicting them as anti-heroes or rebels fighting against the establishment. This portrayal, seen in certain documentaries and feature films, highlights the camaraderie and loyalty within hooligan firms, whilst downplaying the violence and criminality. This romanticised view resonates with some audiences, who saw hooligans as embodiments of defiance and resistance against societal norms. The dual nature of media portrayals has had a profound impact on public perception. The sensationalist approach contributed to moral panic around hooliganism, prompting calls for severe crackdowns and punitive measures. At the same time, the romanticised portrayal fueled fascination and, in some cases, admiration for the hooligan lifestyle. Predicament reflects the complex relationship between media narratives and public attitudes towards football hooliganism. In the response to the growing violence and public outcry, the government and law enforcement agencies implemented a series of measures aimed at curbing football hooliganism. These crackdowns sought to address both the immediate incidences of violence and the underlying causes of hooligan behaviour. Launched in the early 1980s, Operation Red Card was one of the most significant police operations aimed at tackling football hooliganism. The operation involved a coordinated effort across multiple police forces to identify, arrest and prosecute known hooligans. Key aspects of Operation Red Card included increased surveillance, intelligence gathering, and the use of new technologies such as CCTV to monitor and control violent behaviour at football matches. The crackdown on hooliganism also involved legislative measures designed to deter violence and enhance security. The Football Offences Act 1989 was a landmark piece of legislation that made specific acts of football-related violence illegal and introduced harsher penalties for offenders. This act gave police greater powers to address hooligan behaviour and establish a legal framework for prosecuting football-related crimes. Another key component of the crackdown was the introduction of football banning orders. These orders, implemented under the Football Offences Act, prohibited individuals convicted of football-related violence from attending matches for specified periods. Banning orders were aimed at reducing the number of known troublemakers in the stadium and were part of a broader strategy to improve match day safety. The problem of football hooliganism was not confined to the UK, it was a European-wide issue. As such, international cooperation became essential in addressing the problem. The European Convention of Spectator Violence and Misbehaviour at Sports Events, and in particular at football matches, established in 1985, aimed to promote collaboration between European countries in tackling football-related violence. This cooperation included shared intelligence, coordinating police efforts, and developing common strategies for managing violent behaviour. As the measures to combat hooliganism took effect, the landscape of football culture and law enforcement evolved. The strategies and responses developed during the crackdown years have had a lasting effect on both football fandom and the way authorities handle football-related violence. The crackdown on hooliganism led to significant changes in football culture. Increased security measures such as improved stadium infrastructure, stricter access controls, and enhanced policing transformed the matchday experience. The visibility of hooligan firms diminished as many of their activities were curtailed by the increased scrutiny and legal measures. However, while the overt violence decreased, the cultural impact of hooliganism persisted in certain areas, with some firms adapting their activities to avoid detection. Law enforcement agencies have continued to adapt their strategies in response to changing patterns of football violence. The focus has shifted from reactive measures to proactive strategies, including intelligence-led policing and community engagement. Modern technology such as facial recognition and data analytics has further enhanced the ability of authorities to manage and prevent football-related violence. Despite the crackdown, football fan culture has evolved rather than disappeared. While hooliganism as a public phenomenon has declined, the underlying passion and rivalries remain strong. The focus has shifted from managing fan behaviour through dialogue and engagement to emphasising the importance of creating safe and enjoyable environments for all supporters. The efforts to combat football hooliganism has provided the valuable lesson for managing public order and addressing subcultural violence. A combination of legislative measures, law enforcement strategies, and internal cooperation has been instrumental in reducing the prevalence of hooligan violence. However, the ongoing challenges of managing football fan behaviour and adapting to new forms of violence and disorder highlight the need for continued vigilance and innovation. The media portrayal of football hooligans, combined with the extensive legal and policing efforts, has shaped the evolution of football culture and the management of football-related violence. The responses from authorities have transformed the landscape of hooliganism, leading to significant changes in both football fandom and law enforcement strategies. The legacy of these efforts underscores the complexity of addressing subcultural violence and the ongoing need for adaptive and proactive approaches to ensure the safety and enjoyment of football for all fans. The latter part of the 20th century and the early 21st century marked a period of significant transformation for the football culture, particularly for the hooligan firms that had once dominated the terraces. The rise of the Premier League era brought about profound changes to the English football landscape, influencing the operations and existence of notorious firms like the Herd. This chapter delves into the factors that led to the decline of the Herd, the ways in which the firm adapted or faded away, and the broader transformation of football fan identities. One of the most visible changes in football during the Premier League era was the transformation of stadiums from traditional standing terraces to all-seater venues. This shift, driven by safety regulations and the aftermath of the Hillsborough disaster in 1989, aimed to improve spectator comfort and safety. However, it had a profound impact on hooliganism. Standing terraces, which had long been a breeding ground for large-scale confrontations, were replaced with seats that limited the movement of fans and reduced the potential for mass brawls. This design of all-seater stadiums, with their segmented seating and enhanced security measures, made it more difficult for hooligan firms to congregate and organise large-scale confrontations. The introduction of extensive CCTV coverage within and around football stadiums played a crucial role in curbing hooliganism. Cameras were strategically placed to monitor crowd behaviour and identify individuals involved in violence. This increased surveillance not only made it easier for authorities to track and prosecute hooligans, but it also served as a deterrent to potential troublemakers. The visibility of cameras and the threat of being captured on film discouraged many from engaging in violent behaviour. The Premier League era saw a significant increase in policing and security measures at football matches. The deployment of more officers, the use of advanced crowd control techniques, and the implementation of stringent security checks at stadium entrances all contributed to a more controlled matchday environment. These measures aimed to prevent violence and manage the behaviour of supporters, making it more challenging for hooligan firms to operate with the same level of impunity as before. As the environment for hooliganism became increasingly hostile, many firms, including the Herd, had to adapt to their strategies. Some hooligans shifted their activities to less visible and less monitored locations, such as pubs and backstreets, where they could still engage in confrontations without the same level of scrutiny. Others sought to blend into the larger crowd, using disguises or adopting more subtle methods of organising violence. The combination of stricter security measures, increased policing, and the general decline in the popularity of hooliganism contributed to a decrease in membership and activity within the Herd. Many former members of hooligan firms either left the scene or turned to other forms of fan engagement. The declining numbers and the heightened risk of arrest and prosecution made involvement in violent activities less appealing to new potential recruits. Internal dynamics of the Herd also contributed to its decline, as the firm faced increasing pressure from law enforcement and the changing football landscape. Internal divisions and rivalries within the group became more pronounced. These conflicts, combined with external pressures, led to a fragmentation of the firm and a reduction in its overall coercion and effectiveness. As traditional hooligan firms like the Herd declined, a new form of football fan culture began to emerge: the ultra movement. Ultras were known for their passionate support, elaborate displays, and organisation of fan groups. Unlike hooligan firms, which were primarily focused on violence and confrontation, ultras emphasised intense support for their team, creating vibrant and visually striking displays at matches. This shift reflects a broader change in football fan culture, where the focus moved from violence to creating a more positive and communal fan experience. Despite the decline of hooligan firms, rivalry between clubs and their supporters remained a central feature of football culture. Ultras and other fan groups continued to engage in displays of loyalty and support, often using creative and elaborate methods to express their allegiance. While the nature of these rivalries changed, with a greater emphasis on display of support rather than violence, the competitive spirit and passion for football remained strong. The legacy of football hooliganism continued to influence fan culture, even as the Herd and similar firms faded away. The experiences and stories of past hooliganism became part of football folklore, serving as a reminder of a different era of fan culture. For some, the memory of firms like the Herd represents a time of intense passion and loyalty, even as the focus of football fandom shifted away from violence. The decline of the Herd and the broader transformation of football fan culture during the Premier League era were driven by a combination of factors, including changes in stadium design, increased surveillance and policing, and the rise of new forms of fan engagement. While the Herd and other hooligan firms face significant challenges, the legacy of their activities continued to shape football culture and fan identities in complex and enduring ways. As Arsenal Football Club strides confidently into the 21st century, the landscape of its fan culture has undergone dramatic transformations. The vibrant, often tumultuous world of hooliganism that once characterised Arsenal's terraces has largely receded, but its echoes continue to resonate in the modern day fanbase. This chapter explores the current state of Arsenal's fan culture, the legacy of past hooliganism, and the ongoing fascination with the tales of yesteryear. Today, Arsenal supporters represent a diverse and expansive community, reflecting the global appeal of the Premier League. The shift from local working class supporters to a broader, more cosmopolitan fan base has been driven by the club's international success, the rise of digital media, and the accessibility of the Premier League football worldwide. Arsenal's fans now include a wide range of demographics, from international tourists to local families, each bringing their unique perspectives and passions to the club. Modern Arsenal fans place a strong emphasis on creating positive matchday atmospheres. The shift from violence to support is evident in the vibrant displays, coordinated chants, and elaborate banners that characterise the Emirates Stadium experience. Supporter groups such as the Arsenal Supporters Trust and various independent fan clubs play a significant role in fostering a sense of community and advocating for fan interests both on and off the pitch. The rise of social media has now revolutionised how Arsenal fans engage with each other and the club. Platforms like Twitter, Instagram and Reddit provide spaces for fans to share experiences, opinions and analysis of matches. This digital interaction has created a new dynamic in fan culture, where real-time reactions and discussions can amplify and influence the narrative surrounding the club. Fan forums and social media groups often reflect a spectrum of opinions, from enthusiastic support to critical analysis, contributing to a rich, multifaceted fan experience. The legacy of hooliganism lingers in the collective memory of Arsenal's fan base. While overt violence has largely disappeared, the stories and myths of the past, confrontations, continue to shape the identity of certain fan groups. For some, the tales of the Herd and other hooligan firms are part of the club's folklore, symbolising a bygone era of intense loyalty and passion. This historical renaissance can sometimes surface in discussions or debates about the club, adding a layer of depth to the fan experience. Some modern supporters, while not engaged in violence, echo the rebellious and confrontational spirit of past hooliganism. This is often manifested through passionate displays of support, fierce rivalries, and a strong sense of identity and community. The ultra movement, which emphasises organised support and dramatic displays, can be seen as a continuation of the fervent collective spirit that characterised the hooligan era, albeit in a more controlled and positive manner. Social media platforms serve as a respiratory for both contemporary fan experiences and nostalgic reflections on the past. Many forums, fan pages and blogs often feature discussions about the club's history, including its hooligan past. This digital space allows for the sharing of stories, the analysis of historical events, and the preservation of the club's rich legacy. While the focus may be on celebrating current achievements, there is also a fascination with the dramatic and tumultuous periods of Arsenal's history. The fascination with hooligan tales reflects a broader cultural interest in the darker, more dramatic aspects of football history. Books, documentary and films about hooliganism continue to capture the imagination of both football fans and the general public, The allure of these stories lies in their portrayal of raw, unfiltered side of football culture, highlighting themes of loyalty, conflict and community. For some, the history of hooliganism serves as an educational tool, offering insights into the social and cultural dynamics of the past. Understanding the rise and fall of hooligan firms provides context for the changes in football culture and the ongoing efforts to address violence and promote positive fan behaviour. This historical perspective can enrich the appreciation of modern football and the evolution of fan culture. The ongoing interest in hooligan tales also plays a role in preserving the legacy of figures like Dainton, Connell and the firms that they led. While the violent aspects of hooliganism are largely condemned, the stories of these individuals and their impact on football culture remains a significant part of the club's history. The preservation of legacy ensures that the complex and multifaceted nature of Arsenal's past is not forgotten, even as the fan culture continues to evolve. The current state of Arsenal's fan culture is marked by diversity, positivity, and a focus on creating a vibrant matchday experience. However, the legacy of hooliganism continues to echo through historical narratives, fan groups, and social media. The fascination with past hooliganism tales underscores their enduring impact on football culture, offering both a reflection on the past and a lens through which to understand the present. As Arsenal moves forward, the echoes of its tumultuous history remain an integral part of its identity, shaping the stories and the experiences of its supporters in both subtle and significant ways. As Arsenal Football Club has transitioned into the new era of footballing success and fan culture, the impact of the club's past hooliganism remains a potent and complex element of its history. This chapter delves into how the Herd and other Arsenal firms will be remembered, their influence on football culture and fan identity, and what the hooligan era signifies for Arsenal and football history at large. The legacy of Arsenal's hooligan firms, particularly the Herd, is often remembered as a turbulent chapter in the club's storied history. These groups are frequently highlighted in historical retrospectives and documentaries as emblematic of a period when football hooliganism was at its zenith. While contemporary Arsenal fans may not experience the violence of the past, the story of the Herd's confrontations and their notorious reputation remain a significant part of the club's folklore. Media portrayals and literature have played a crucial role in shaping the public's perception of Arsenal's hooligan firms. Books such as Andy Nichol's Hooligans and various documentaries provide detailed accounts of the Herd's activities, contributing to their myth. These sources often emphasise the dramatic and violent aspects of the firms, reinforcing their place in football's dark history. The media's fascination with hooliganism ensures that stories of the Herd and their counterparts remain vivid and influential. Despite their controversial nature, some hooligan figures are remembered with a degree of reverence by certain sections of fan bases. For instance, Dainton Connell, known as the Bear, is remembered with a mix of admiration and nostalgia. His death and subsequent funeral, attended by thousands, illustrate the respect he garnered amongst Arsenal supporters. Mr. Connell's legacy is also reflected in the occasional mention of fan forums, articles and even social media discussions, where his larger-than-life persona and impact on Arsenal's history are acknowledged. The hooligan era profoundly influenced the development of football fan culture. The intense rivalries, organised support and sense of identity that characterise firms like the Herd have left a lasting imprint on how supporters engage with their clubs. While contemporary fan groups may not replicate the violence of the past, the passionate, sometimes confrontational spirit of the hooligan era persists in the organised displays and fervent support seen in modern football. The legacy of hooliganism can be seen in the evolution of the ultra groups, which emphasise choreographed displays, passionate support, and a strong sense of community. These groups often draw on the traditions of earlier hooligan firms, adopting elements of their culture while steering clear of violence. The connection between historical hooliganism and modern ultra groups highlights the enduring influence of past fan behaviour and current football culture. The historical rivalries between Arsenal and other clubs, such as Tottenham Hotspur and West Ham United, were significantly shaped by the hooligan era. The intensities of these rivalries, characterised by both fierce competition and occasional violence, continues to resonate in today's matches. While the nature of these rivalries has changed, the legacy of the past confrontations informs the passionate and sometimes heated interactions between fans. The hooligan era serves as a stark reminder of the darker side of football culture, offering valuable lessons about the consequences of violence and the importance of positive fan behaviour. The efforts made to address and mitigate hooliganism, including increased policing, stadium regulations and fan education, reflect the footballing community's commitment to creating a safer and more inclusive environment. The hooligan era is a crucial chapter in the broader history of football, illustrating the complex interplay between sport, society and identity. The rise and fall of hooligan firms like The Herd contribute to our understanding of football's social cultural dynamics, revealing how issues of class, race and regionalism have intersected with the sport. Despite the decline of hooliganism, the fascination with this aspect of football history endures. The stories of Arsenal's hooligan firms continue to captivate audiences, both within and outside the football community. This enduring interest highlights the complex nature of football culture and the allure of past controversies and the dramatic narratives of yesterday that continue to resonate today. The legacy of Arsenal hooliganism, embodied by The Herd and other firms, is a multifaceted and enduring element of the club's history. While the violent aspects of the hooligan era have now largely faded, their impact on football culture and fan identity and historical understanding remains significant. Reflecting on this legacy provides a valuable insight into the evolution of football fandom and the broader cultural impacts of the sport. As we conclude our exploration of Arsenal's hooligan history, it is essential to reflect on how this tumultuous period has shaped the club and its supporters. The story of The Herd and the broader context of hooliganism provides a crucial understanding of the evolution of football culture, the transformation of Arsenal's fan base, and the enduring legacy of the hooligan era. The rise and fall of hooliganism in Arsenal's history are more than just stories of violence. They are rivalries. They are reflective of a broader societal phenomenon. During the late 20th century, Arsenal's hooligan firms, particularly The Herd, were at the forefront of a culture that intertwined sport with aggression and societal unrest. These confrontations and conflicts on the Terraces painted a picture of a club and its supporters entrenched in fierce loyalty and intense rivalries. The impact of these hooligan groups on Arsenal was profound. They contributed to the club's reputation both in the UK and internationally, shaping how Arsenal was perceived by the public and rival fans. The violent confrontations, the fierce loyalty displayed by these groups, and their key involvement in key moments of football history added layers of complexity to the club's identity. However, the violence also led to significant challenges for Arsenal, influencing stadium policies, fan behaviour, and the club's broader image. The football culture that gave rise to hooligan firms has undergone dramatic transformation. The 1990s marked the beginning of a shift of football authorities, law enforcement, and government implemented measures to combat hooliganism. These changes included the introduction of all-seater stadiums, enhanced policing, and stricter regulations aimed at reducing violence and improving fan safety. Arsenal's transition from Highbury to the Emirates Stadium symbolised a broader change in the football culture. The new stadium, with its modern facilities and increased security measures, represented a move towards a more family-friendly and commercialised football experience. This transformation was accompanied by a shift in the nature of fan groups, with many former hooligan firms evolving into organised ultra groups or fan clubs that focused on passionate support rather than violence. The rise of social media and digital platforms has further altered the landscape. Modern Arsenal fans engage with their club in new ways, creating vibrant online communities and participating in global fan culture. While the violent hooliganism of the past has largely disappeared, the sense of community and loyalty remains strong, albeit in a different form. The legacy of the Herd and Arsenal's hooliganism is complex and multifaceted. On one hand, the story is a reminder of the darker period of football history, marked by violence and confrontations that left a significant mark on the sport. The tale of the Herd's battles and their impact on rivalries are a part of the rich tapestry of football lore, illustrating the intense and often brutal nature of fan culture during that era. On the other hand, the evolution from those violent days to the present reflects a broader shift towards a more inclusive and positive football environment. The measures taken to address hooliganism and the transformation of the fan culture signify progress and a commitment to ensuring that football remains a sport that can be enjoyed by all. The story of Arsenal's hooligans, especially the Herd, serves as a cautionary tale and a testament to the power of football to evolve. It highlights how the passions and loyalties of fans, once expressed through violence, have found new forms of expression in today's football culture. The legacy of the Herd is preserved not just in historical accounts, but in the continued evolution of Arsenal's fan base and the broader football community. In conclusion, Arsenal's journey from the turbulent terraces of the past to the triumphs of the present underscore the transformative power of football. The story of the Herd and their impact on Arsenal is a vital chapter in understanding the sport's history and the ongoing evolution of fan culture. As we look to the future, the lessons learned from this era continue to shape the way football is experienced and celebrated around the world. One of the most contentious moments in the aftermath of the hooligan era was the removal of the commemorative plaque dedicated to Dainton Connell, also known as the Bear of Highbury. The plaque, which was installed near the Emirates Stadium, was intended to honour Mr Connell's memory and his connection to Arsenal. However, in 2009, Islington Borough Council decided to remove the plaque, citing concern over Mr Connell's association with hooliganism and the potential for it to be seen as a celebration of violent behaviour. The decision to remove the plaque sparked significant backlash from Arsenal fans and Mr Connell's supporters. Many viewed the removal as an attempt to erase part of the club's history that, despite its negative aspects, was an integral part of the club's identity. Critics argued that the plaque was not intended to glorify violence, but to acknowledge Mr Connell's complex legacy and his role in Arsenal fan culture. The controversy highlighted the ongoing struggle to balance the historical acknowledgement with the desire to present a sanitised image of the club. Another point of contention was Arsenal's decision to refuse to host Dainton Connell's wake in their hospitality rooms. Mr Connell's death in 2007 following a car crash in Moscow was marked by a large and emotional funeral attended by numerous notable figures and fans. Mr Connell's friends and supporters criticised Arsenal for not accommodating the wake, viewing the refusal as a sign of the club's unwillingness to acknowledge the significance of Mr Connell's life and legacy. Arsenal's stance was perceived by some as an attempt by the club to distance itself from the controversial past, reflecting a broader trend amongst football clubs to disassociate from more problematic aspects of their history. This incident underscored the tension between the club's desire to move forward and the complex legacy of its past, particularly its association with hooliganism. Former Arsenal Fan TV personality Liam Goodenough, better known as Mr DT, has spoken out for the first time following his release from prison. Mr Goodenough, who gained prominence on YouTube for his outspoken Arsenal commentary, was sentenced in November 2021 after being convicted of serious charges, including kidnapping, assault occasioning actual bodily harm, and stalking. Mr Goodenough was originally sentenced to 12 months, but had his term extended to 3 years in January 2022. He was released in mid-September 2023 and broke his silence in a recent episode of his YouTube series DT Daily, making his first appearance since July 2022. Before we get into football and talk about Chelsea against Arsenal, there are a few things I need to address. Mr. Goodenough began in his video. I'm sure many of you know what's been happening in my personal life over the last 15 to 16 months. But when it comes to that night and the reasons behind my prison sentence, I won't be discussing that on camera. He expressed a firm stance on keeping the matter private, particularly out of respect for the victim, his ex-partner, and the mother of his children, stating, "There's a victim involved, and I will not be dragging all of this up again." The court case revealed disturbing details of the incident, which took place on July 24th, 2021. Mr. Goodenough had used a phone tracking feature to locate his ex-partner in Buckinghamshire town in the early morning hours. After finding her with a friend, Mr. Goodenough assaulted them and attempted to force her into his car. A bystander intervened, freeing the victim before Mr. Goodenough fled. He was arrested 2 days later and given a restraining order for 10 years. Additional charges, including controlling or coercive behaviour and disclosing private sexual images, were left on file. In his latest video, Mr. Goodenough reiterated his decision to avoid discussing the incident publicly, emphasising his desire to focus on his children and his personal life moving forward. "You've all seen the media reports, and I don't need to elaborate any further," he said. "If anyone wants to talk to me about it privately, that's fine, but on camera, I won't be addressing this anymore." Mr. Goodenough also confirmed he would not be returning to Arsenal Fan TV, AFTV, the platform that initially propelled him to fame. The fan channel has severed ties with him following his conviction. "I wish AFTV and Robbie all the best," he stated. "There's no ill feeling, but I'm moving forward in my life." After addressing his personal situation, Mr. Goodenough shifted the conversation back to football, discussing Arsenal's 1-0 victory over Chelsea. A football hooligan who attacked 2 police officers after an Arsenal game has been banned from football for 8 years. Bradley Pryor, who was 38, was issued with the football banning order after being convicted of assault of an emergency worker and criminal damage. Highbury Corner Magistrates Court heard officers were patrolling post-match in the vicinity of the Emirates Stadium after the Arsenal vs Liverpool game on March the 16th, 2022, when they came across Pryor of Brentwood, who was being rude and confrontational towards Liverpool fans. Officers warned him a number of times to stop, but he refused. He then threw a beer at a female officer and lashed out at officers as they arrested him. He also damaged a police radio. An officer sustained grazes to her legs and hands during the struggle to arrest Mr. Pryor. Mr. Pryor was arrested and taken to custody before being released on bail. He was charged in October 2023. January the 2nd, Mr. Pryor was given a sentence of 8 weeks imprisonment, suspended for 1 year, and ordered to pay compensation of £200 and costs of £300. He was also handed a football banning order for 8 years, meaning he could not attend a football match in that time. Football banning officer PC Jack Muscat from the Central Football Unit said Mr. Pryor was warned a number of times to stop abusing the Liverpool fans, who were just trying to make their way from the stadium without incident, and was extremely violent and aggressive upon arrest. We're very happy that he has been given an FBO. Everybody should be able to go and watch the football without fear of people like Mr. Pryor ruining the occasion. It should set an example for anyone intent on causing trouble that we will pursue these kinds of punishments. Commending the arresting officer, District Judge Mr. Brennan said, "Thank you for your actions on the day. So many officers would allow behaviour like this to continue and not properly challenge the fans. You and your colleagues' composure whilst dealing with Mr. Pryor was commendable, and he was particularly violent throughout." At least 8 Arsenal fans were arrested in the Ugandan city of Jinja after celebrating the team's 3-2 victory over Manchester United in the English Premier League. The fans, donning the iconic red Arsenal jerseys and carrying a symbolic trophy, were taken into custody for holding an unauthorised public possession, an offence under Ugandan's public order laws. The victory, marked by a dramatic last-minute goal, gave Arsenal a 5-point lead at the top of the Premier League table, sparking celebrations amongst fans worldwide. The excitement was particularly high in Uganda, where both Arsenal and Manchester United boast large, passionate fan bases. However, local police halted the celebratory convoy of 5 vehicles, one of which carried a locally purchased trophy. "We were just celebrating our win against Manchester United. I don't know what we did wrong," the Arsenal fan said the Arsenal fan in Uganda. James Mubby, the regional police chief and Arsenal fan himself, explained to the BBC that arrests were due to the group's failure to secure a permit for their possession. He also questioned the timing of the celebration, noting that only half of the Premier League season had been played. What if a conflict with rival fans had erupted? They didn't inform the police to provide security, Mr. Mubby said, denying that the arrest had any political undertones, despite the fact that members of an opposition party, known for wearing red, had been frequently detained in Uganda. Rights groups have raised concerns about the use of Uganda's Public Order Management Act, which they say grants the police excessive powers to suppress civil liberties. Lawyer and rights activists Agava Atuheri pointed out that the Constitutional Court had nullified several provisions of the law, yet the police continued to enforce it aggressively. The police are still acting high-handedly, despite the court's ruling that struck down their broad powers to restrict freedom and assembly and association. Arsenal and Manchester United matches are major events in Uganda, often drawing crowds to makeshift video halls where fans pack in to watch their favourite team in action. The rivalry between the clubs fuels a deep passion, and celebrations like the one in Jinja reflect the strong connection African fans feel to European football.
We are not protesting. We have our rights. We support Arsenal. We are Arsenal fans, and we are right here to celebrate. Yesterday we won 3-2 Arsenal. We are Arsenal fans. We are not protesting. Guys, hey, Afande. We are Arsenal fans. We are protesting. We are This is but Shamla. Where?
On my pickup.
On your pickup?
Let's go.
It's okay.
Hello. Take him to the pickup.
Let me get my shoes. We are Arsenal fans here. Celebrating. I'm making my shoes. Monday. Is there no problem?
Go on the vehicle. Hello.
Is it a game to support your soccer team? Abana Uganda abali tubona tuli bagizi ba Arsenal abakubye Manchester United goals is tukwibiri. We are Arsenal fans. We are Arsenal fans. We are Arsenal fans. We are celebrating.
Samla wika ikana. Samla wika ikana. Samla bitolwana ikana.
You are doing wrong. Don't beat someone. I find it.
I'm a journalist. Have you seen what he has done? Have you seen what he has done? First wait. Be open. You pick your canister. Arsenal fans, they are not protesting. Guys, hey, Afande.
Afande, how is that?
We are Arsenal fans, we are protesting.
Yesterday we won with big money, so we are just we are just celebrating Afande. Because yesterday we
Even
won.
if you are celebrating, you are supposed to alert us, tell us what's going on.
Okay, but we are not protesting. We are just
On your pickup.
Because what are you Arsenal people? You're not supposed to cause commotion in the town.
Is it a crime to support your soccer team? Abana Uganda abali tubona tuli bagizi ba Arsenal abakubye Manchester United goals is tukwibiri. We are Arsenal fans.